It started as a typical Friday evening for 3 friends, Maya, Liam, and Tyler. They had been planning this camping trip for months, promising themselves a break from the constant noise and demands of city life. The forests of Blackridge were the perfect escape. Dense pines, winding trails, and an isolation that felt almost sacred. Cell service was unreliable at best, but that was part of the allure. They wanted to disconnect entirely, to immerse themselves in something raw, something untamed. The drive-in was calm, the road gradually narrowing as it wound through the forest. The sun hovered low in the sky, its fading light casting elongated shadows across the gravel and mossy banks. Liam kept one hand on the steering wheel, while Tyler leaned back, glancing out the window, fascinated by the sheer height of the trees. Maya, sitting in the passenger seat, was double-checking their GPS coordinates and supplies. Every so often, she adjusted her phone, making sure their path was clear. The forest seemed welcoming, almost serene, yet there was a tension in the air, subtle but undeniable, that Maya couldn't quite place. By the time they arrived, the sky had deepened into hues of purple and orange, and the air smelled of pine and damp earth. The clearing they had chosen was small, tucked away near a gently flowing creek, its water glimmering faintly in the twilight. Tyler hopped out immediately, stretching his arms and taking in the quiet, while Liam parked the car and unloaded the gear. Maya, ever methodical, began organizing their tents and arranging sleeping bags. The 3 moved with a rhythm born of years of friendship, joking and laughing, unaware that the forest seemed to be watching them more closely than they could see. They started the fire just as the first stars appeared in the sky. Tyler struck the match, and soon a small blaze flickered to life, throwing dancing shadows across the ground. Liam added logs carefully, coaxing the flames higher, and Maya unpacked snacks and drinks, placing them on a flat rock near the circle they would sit in. For a moment, everything felt idyllic. They laughed, roasted marshmallows, and shared stories from work and school. The forest around them alive with its own symphony, crickets chirping, an occasional owl hooting, and the soft rush of the creek. But as night deepened, a subtle change occurred. The air grew cooler, heavier, and the forest seemed to close in around them. Maya noticed it first, a faint sound, like whispering, drifting through the trees. She paused, straining to hear over the crackling fire and the laughter of her friends. Nothing. Probably the wind, she told herself, but there was an odd rhythm to it, a cadence that felt deliberate, almost human. She glanced at Liam and Tyler, who were still engrossed in their banter, oblivious to the change. Minutes passed, and the whispering returned, clearer this time. Maya felt a chill crawl up her spine as she realized the voices seemed to come from all directions, weaving through the pines and circling the clearing. She pointed toward the darkened woods. "Do you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Liam looked up, frowning. "Hear what?" "The talking," Maya replied. "Talking." Tyler chuckled, but there was an edge to his laugh, unconvincing even to him. "It's probably just other campers, maybe some hikers in the area." But the forest remained silent, save for the crackling fire and the occasional rustle of leaves. Something about the emptiness was wrong. Too empty. Maya's stomach twisted. She shook her head, trying to force herself to dismiss it. They attempted to return to their casual evening, sharing stories and jokes, but the whispers had not disappeared. Occasionally, Liam would pause mid-sentence, glancing toward the shadows that seemed to stretch unnaturally across the clearing. Tyler kept insisting it was nothing, that the forest was simply playing tricks on their minds. But Maya's unease grew with every passing moment. Eventually, exhaustion from the long drive and hike overcame them. They crawled into their tents, hoping sleep would bring relief from the creeping tension. The fire continued to burn brightly outside, casting an orange glow that filtered faintly through the tent fabric. But even through the walls of canvas, Maya could feel the whispering again. It wasn't just background noise. It was intentional, circling, persistent. Unable to shake her fear, she unzipped her tent slightly, peering into the firelight. The flames seemed taller now, dancing in a way that was almost unnatural. Shadows twisted across the trees in shapes that didn't belong, elongating and shrinking as though alive. Her breath caught in her throat. She blinked, convinced that her eyes were betraying her, and then she heard it. The whispering, closer this time, almost forming words. Tyler's voice called softly from his tent, trying to wake her from the growing unease. Maya, everything okay? She didn't answer. She could see movement at the edges of the firelight. Fast, fluid, impossible to define. Liam appeared, frowning, squinting into the darkness. "What's going on?" he asked. The whispers continued, surrounding them, feeding on the uncertainty in their hearts. The forest that had seemed so peaceful hours ago now felt alive in a malevolent way. Each rustle of leaves, each distant snap of a branch, seemed calculated, purposeful. Maya could feel her pulse quickening. Her instincts screamed at her to retreat. But where could she go? The clearing felt smaller, more suffocating. Tyler, trying to lighten the mood, laughed nervously. "It's probably nothing, just the forest being, well, the forest." But the edge in his voice betrayed his fear. He glanced over his shoulder at the dense pines that surrounded them, the shadows bending unnaturally. Something wasn't right. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time had become distorted, warped by the tension that hung like fog over the clearing. The fire flickered, sending beams of orange light across the forest floor, but the whispering persisted, growing louder, more insistent. Maya could no longer deny that there was a presence in the trees, something watching, waiting. Eventually, the three friends lay down, trying to convince themselves that exhaustion and imagination were to blame. But even as sleep began to pull them under, the whispering followed. It didn't fade. It circled, lingered, and settled like a shadow over their minds. Maya was the first to stir in the night. She opened her eyes to the glow of the fire and immediately sensed that something had changed. The flames burned brighter than before, almost defying the small pile of logs beneath them. The shadows among the trees were moving differently, twisting in impossible ways, elongating and retracting as though the forest itself were breathing. Then the whispering returned, deliberate and direct, circling the clearing like footsteps made of air. She froze, unable to move, listening. The sounds were too structured, too intentional to be the wind. Something, or someone, was there, watching, waiting. And then Tyler stirred, rubbing his eyes, squinting at the flickering firelight. "What is that?" he whispered. Liam's voice joined them, shaky, uncertain. I don't like this." The forest seemed to hold its breath. The peaceful night they had entered was gone, replaced by an almost tangible tension, as if the woods themselves were testing them, probing their fear. Maya's heart raced as the whispers grew louder, closer. The fire seemed to mock them, casting long shadows that shifted and twisted with every crackle. The isolation, once charming, now felt oppressive. They were no longer visitors. They were trapped in the forest's gaze. Maya's instinct screamed at her to run, but where? Every tree looked the same, every shadow hiding secrets she couldn't see. She could only stare at the dancing flames, hoping for the morning light that seemed impossibly far away, and somewhere, beyond the reach of their fire, beyond the reach of their understanding, the forest waited, patient, watching. "Maya?" Liam's voice echoed from his tent, weak and uncertain. "You okay?" She didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the edge of the clearing, where shadows twisted and swayed with the firelight. Something was there, moving just beyond recognition. Tyler emerged next, rubbing his eyes, his voice trembling. "What the hell?" The whispers escalated, no longer soft or distant. They filled the clearing, swirling in multiple directions at once, like a chorus of voices speaking directly into their heads. The fire, which had once been a small comforting blaze, now roared unnaturally high, flames reaching skyward as if fueled by something more than wood. Heat radiated outward, pressing against their skin. Maya's stomach churned as a primal sense of dread overtook her. At the edge of the firelight, a figure began to form, impossible to define. Dark, yet distinctly human-shaped. It didn't step forward or move closer. It simply watched. Its presence pressed down on them, and the whispers sharpened into a single, clear voice, calling their names with deliberate patience. "Who's there?" Liam shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the forest. The figure did not respond. The three friends scrambled backward, their movements frantic, desperate. They tried to douse the fire with water and dirt, but the flames only grew taller, brighter, as if mocking their attempts. Every attempt to control it failed. The fire wasn't just fire anymore. It was a warning, a lure, and a threat, all at once. Tyler's voice shook. "We have to go. We need to leave, now." They ran blindly into the forest, branches scratching their arms and legs, roots tripping them, and the ground uneven beneath their feet. Every trail they thought they knew twisted into impossible patterns. Familiar rocks and trees rearranged themselves. It was as if the forest itself had become a labyrinth, shifting and warping around them. The sound of the creek, once a soothing backdrop, had vanished. Silence pressed down over them like a weight, and the whispering never ceased, always just behind them, sometimes directly in front, impossible to track. Time lost all meaning. Minutes stretched into hours, though there was no way to know for certain. Exhaustion clawed at their muscles, but panic propelled them forward. Their breaths came in harsh gasps, lungs burning, hearts hammering like war drums. Each step felt heavier, as though the forest resisted their escape. Eventually, they stumbled into a small clearing, collapsing in exhaustion. The fire was still there, impossibly, burning brighter than before, casting long flickering shadows across the trees. They couldn't comprehend it. They had tried to destroy it, to escape it, and yet it remained, a burning sentinel in the dark. Maya's voice broke first. "Is this real?" Her eyes welled with tears, reflecting the unearthly flames. Liam shook his head, unable to answer. His mind spun with disbelief. I don't know," he admitted. Then Tyler noticed it. Something etched into the dirt around the fire caught his eye. Circles, intricate symbols, markings too precise, too deliberate to be natural. They weren't carved or drawn by human hands. Or if they were made with a care and precision that defied comprehension. The shapes seemed to shift when he looked away and back again. A subtle, unnerving motion, a sudden snap behind them made them spin. A branch broke, hitting the ground with a loud crack, but nothing was visible. The whispers intensified, now urgent, angry, echoing through the clearing. The forest was alive in a way that had nothing to do with birds or wind. It remembered. It remembered every person who had ventured too far, every camper who thought they could tame it for a weekend. Fear consumed them. Panic overrode exhaustion. They ran again, directionless, guided only by slivers of moonlight filtering through the thick canopy. Every step seemed futile. The forest itself shifted, twisting paths into dead ends, erasing every familiar landmark. They could hear each other's gasps and cries, but even their shouts felt swallowed by the oppressive dark. Hours, or maybe minutes, time now irrelevant, passed in a blur of motion and terror. They finally stumbled again into another clearing, collapsing to the ground, trembling, bruised, scratched. The fire remained, burning with the same impossible intensity. Shadows leapt and writhed, as though alive, and the whispers had quieted only enough to make the next sound more noticeable. The low, steady hum of something unseen, vibrating through the earth beneath them. Maya's gaze fell on the symbols again. The dirt seemed alive, shifting subtly under the firelight. Circles and lines, spirals and intersecting marks. Patterns she couldn't recognize, yet instinctively understood as a warning. The forest was not passive. It was aware, intelligent, deliberate, and it was not going to let them leave without acknowledging its rules. Another crack sounded behind them, louder this time. Something, or someone, was moving just beyond the firelight. Never fully revealed, yet impossible to ignore. Tyler screamed, pointing, but there was nothing concrete. Only shadows and the relentless, almost sentient fire. The three friends scrambled to their feet. They ran blindly once more, branches tearing at their clothes, the uneven terrain sending them stumbling repeatedly. Their hearts pounded, lungs burning, but the forest refused to release them. Every familiar trail they tried to follow twisted into a dead end. Every sound of movement behind them matched nothing they could see. Eventually, dawn began to creep into the sky, grey light pushing through the canopy. Their feet carried them to a gravel road, their bodies battered and bleeding, but they had escaped the immediate terror. The forest behind them returned to its normal rhythm, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant sound of the creek, birdsong resuming its peaceful melody. They paused, gasping for breath, trying to reconcile what had just happened. The fire was gone. No smoke, no signs, no trace of the symbols or the malevolent presence. The forest looked as though it had always been peaceful, always safe, but they knew better. Even as they tried to recount the events later, reality refused to cooperate. Photos from their phones were corrupted, videos glitched, GPS coordinates led only to empty woods, nowhere near the clearing they had camped in. Each attempt to tell someone else was met with confusion and disbelief. Weeks passed. The terror faded physically, but never mentally. And then the messages began. Simple texts, received at odd hours, with no sender information. No number, no account, nothing identifiable. Only one line: the fire never dies. Each received message left them cold, hearts hammering. A memory of that night rushing back in sharp, vivid detail. They realized with dawning horror that some places were not meant to be found. Some fires, some presences, never truly extinguish. Even now, when campers speak of Blackridge, locals offer a warning. Never light a fire past the first clearing. Some fires, they never die. The legend persisted, not as a story for thrill seekers, but as a caution, etched into memory by those who survived and those who would never be heard from again. And somewhere, deep within the twisting pines of Blackridge, the fire waits, patient, eternal, watching.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.